Okay, so this is the front of my classroom. You can see I have rules posted, and under each of the rules is a description of like how you would do each thing. So I try to keep it simple, act like an artist, respect people, and take care of the art room. But the stuff underneath those, clean up. If you do something, whatever. So all of those were co-created with kids. So I said, hey, these are the rules, but I need you guys to help me outline what each of those means. Near the door, we have safety equipment. I usually have the safety information thing for fire drills right there. We've got some centers around the room, which I'll go into detail more in a moment on these centers. We have some flat files and some storage underneath. I try to keep everything on wheels so that when we have to pack up at the end of the year, I can just stack stuff on top of the wheels. And then we have the drawing center over here. And if you go around the room, you can see that I have it set up in centers. So we've got collage, paint, and then there's centers behind the curtains and books. And I'll go just a smidge more in depth with everything. Okay, so this corner of my room is very jam-packed full of stuff. This is like 3 studios over here. First and foremost is my digital art studio. I've got some posters about digital art, my printer, iPads, and that's the majority of my digital art center because we don't have computers anymore. This is my Artsonia Lightbox. Part of the digital art studio is the collecting of art for the digital portfolio, which we use Artsonia for. We've got QR codes so that the kids can log into Artsonia over here. I also have a scanner under here that we could scan things with. We've got some digital books. This up here is a game that's kind of like a light bright, but it doesn't light up, and it works really well if kids are learning about like 8-bit art, which is a digital thing. That's an analog way to create that. We've got artist statement posters and reflection, because part of uploading art to your portfolio is having your reflection piece happening. Down here is our architecture center, and you can see I've got it labeled. On the side, up here, we've got some books about architecture, and we have some simple architecture supplies. We've got Lincoln logs and blocks and Legos. I also have some blueprints that are too big to store over here right now, but that's a good thing to look at in the architecture center. And then we've got our fiber art studio, and that's this cabinet right here, which is full of sewing supplies and weaving supplies and cross-stitching supplies and friendship bracelet supplies and all the various different textile things. We've got posters about how to use all of that stuff. And this is pretty much self-serve for kids. We've even got some rubbing fashion plates game, just because sometimes that helps spark the imagination with text. Okay, so this is the drawing center, and you can see that I have it set up with some drawing books and clipboards, and this bin just has random drawing ideas. There's some resources above it that are specific to that center. We've got posters on the outside of the drawing center, and then when I open up the cabinets, you can see that it's the end of the year, so it's not perfect, but you can see that I have everything labeled in boxes. I have enough boxes for there to be a box of supplies at each table. So even though I do run a more choice-based classroom where I want kids to be able to self-serve, I do want to have enough of all supplies that if I'm teaching a technique with a certain material, I can just have that out, and there's enough for every kid in the class. So it comes in handy when kids are using what they want, because they can just grab a box, but we're not limited to just that type of configuration. Okay, and so right next to the drawing center, we have kind of an extension of the drawing center. These cups up top in the purple bin are color sorted colored pencils. When they get like down to tiny nubs, I sort them into a color sorted system. so that if somebody's looking for a particular color, it's easier for them to find. They just have to deal with a smaller one. We've got hole punches, we've got copy paper for free drawing, we have extra pencils and erasers, and then on top of the inside the cabinet is technically the clay center, but it's actually just my clay storage. And you can see I keep it pretty organized, but this is mostly just for me so that things are easily accessible when we do clay. I don't do clay in a choice-based manner just because it's too chaotic for me. So that's always a full class situation. Okay, and so this is the collage center, and you can see that each of these bins has different tools and supplies. We have some color-coded construction paper down at the bottom. We've got scissors and staplers and tape and glue, which are easily accessible to kids when we're not working specifically with collage, but all the time. These baskets here are really important because if a kid is choosing to do collage, they can grab a basket and grab whatever supplies they need from the bins and take it back to their table. You can see that I have a selection of collage books and a poster that relates. I probably need to work on that poster, but it's there. I also have a bin of adaptive supplies, and I have that in every center so that there's supplies that are specific to that type of material in every center. They're with all of the regular supplies, so nobody that needs the adaptive supply feels left out or like they're being othered. It's in the same location. They just have to grab it from a specific bin, and that's just for organization's sake so that I know what is there. And keep in mind that things like left-handed scissors are technically adaptive supplies, so lots of kids need those things. You should make sure you're having them available. Okay, and this is my painting center. I tend to leave just the primary colors in black and white in tempera paint available to kids. If they want to use that type of paint, that's fine, but they do have to mix the colors on their own, and we spend time at the beginning of every year reviewing how to mix colors. If we're doing a more teacher-directed project where everybody's using secondary and tertiary colors, then I do have in my storage some supplies like that where I can just pass those out. But for the most part, if you are choosing to use tempera paint, I want you to be mixing paint. We also have tempera cakes and watercolors, and you can see that there's some books here. We've got all kinds of cups. We've got trays for collecting supplies to take back to our seat. We've got sinks, we've got aprons, and what? And we have drying racks with cardboard on top so that we can put multiple paintings in a single drying rack. I do recommend having a carpeted area near your sinks, not because having carpet where it can get wet is a great idea, but because it helps reduce slipping. If water is spilled, it becomes less of a hazardous area. All right, and behind this curtain, I actually have my sculpture center. And I like to focus more on found object sculptures, so there's all kinds of just random supplies in all of these bins. This is also where I keep my clay storage, Play-Doh, modeling clay, glue guns, things of that nature. There's just more storage up top. This is where I keep the blueprints for the architecture center, just because it's all the only place I have to put them. And then this back here is just paper storage. So this, if we're doing centers, is a place where kids can grab things. We also have posters for this one. It's also labeled. By the way, these red dots that you might be seeing on all the centers, that is a way that I denote whether or not a center is open or closed. So on the other side of that is a green side. So if the center is green, then it's accessible to whoever needs to use it for that period. And then if it's turned around to red, that means that that center is not an option. All right, and this over here is my carpet area. The custodians have already taken my carpet away for the summer, but this is where I have little kids sit so I can do read alouds, hold group instruction. You can see over here I have a library. On this side of the library, there is reference books, art books for museums, that kind of thing. And then in the other library bin over here, those are more like picture books that relate to artists and things that are more kid level, so kids can choose to come over here and read to themselves. And these bins over here that are labeled with different centers, those are picture books that relate to each of those centers. So like there's an architecture one and a drawing one. The books in the centers are more technical, like here's how you do things books, whereas those are more like informational books about artists that are, you know, sometimes fictionalized. But this side is kid-friendly books, and this side are more books that grown-ups and other artists would probably buy, but they are good references for older students or just myself. This pile of pillows over here is actually my peace area. Every teacher is required to have a peace area where a kid can, or calm down corner, some people call it. Peace area is the AISD verbiage. I have headphones so that kids that get overstimulated with sound can grab one if they need one. There are books about feelings. There are fidgets and all kinds of things over there. A lot of people make theirs very inviting. I tend to make mine less obvious because some kids will choose to go do that as a work avoidance tactic rather than because it's something that they really need. So it's there. I let the kids know that I have one and it's available, but because it's less visible, only the kids that really need the items in that center tend to go for it. Just because it's not quite as inviting. Our music teacher actually has like an office supply catalog as his peace area. You need to calm down, you go look at the office supply catalog, and kids really seem to enjoy it, which I think is hilarious. I don't really have a traditional desk, but I do have an area where I can sit and have my computer so that it projects to the kids. So this is my desk area. I try to make my area as small as possible so that the kids have the more run of the room than I do. The shelf behind it is my teacher book shelf with all of my teacher books and all of my paperwork and everything. That is my chair that I rescued from a dumpster when I was in college. And this is my little spot where I sit with my computer. And you can see I've got my document camera and an iPad stand for recording videos. And then there's my TV. I also have a TV over here because my room is oddly shaped and it really helps for everybody to be able to see, to have two TVs going at a time. I have this low table right here, which is a good place for kids to take themselves to sit if they need to be away from the people at their table. It's also a good just place to put supplies that are in use for a lesson so that kids can go grab them. I don't necessarily let little kids go help themselves to things in centers, so that's a good place to grab stuff and put it. And kids know that if they can't find something in a center, it's probably because it's in use in another class and I've got it on this little table. But even when I have stuff piled on this table, it's a good place to take yourself to sit and work. You can see that I have a basket of wobble stools that usually lives under the table that kids can grab to sit on while they sit here at this table. And then over here, I have a sketchbook cabinet, and we use that to just store our sketchbooks. It's a really great cabinet if you can get your hands on one of these. It's got bins. Open it up. You can see it's got like my volume poster. All right, so it's got bins for each of the classes, and each class actually gets 2 bins. And for most of the year, 1 bin is for art that is finished and when the other bin is for the sketchbooks, but eventually we have to just combine them both together. I use dry erase tape on each of the bins to be able to label them when teachers change. It's a pretty great system. I like it a lot. We just use Brad folders for our sketchbooks, and you can see that I have a word wall on my sketchbook thing because we always support language acquisition, even in essential areas. And that's pretty much it. That's my classroom.